Um, Environment is everything, all the living and non-living things that surround people, that surround us. Okay, that our surroundings. Okay, our surroundings can include living things like plants, trees. Okay, birds, animals, and so on, and also the geographical features like everything. Okay, everything that surrounds us is our environment. So this environment is different from ecology. Ecology or ecological concerns are also related to environment, but slightly different. Ecology is about the relationship, okay, or the interrelationships between all the living things, all the living organisms on Earth. Okay, that is what ecology is about. It's like how birds are dependent on plants. Plants are in turn dependent on all the. For example, they are dependent on birds for dispersal of their seeds. How animals are dependent on various other living organisms. Okay, how people in turn are dependent on a wide range of living organisms. Okay, that is what ecology is about. Ecology is about the networks of interrelationships or dependencies between living organisms. Whereas environment is uh, mainly about what surrounds us, people. Okay, so at the center of this environmental concern is people, okay, or human beings. Whereas um, at the center of this, whereas in the case of ecological or ecology is much broader and it's concerned with the survival and interdependencies of all living things. Okay, so that is the difference. So now it's easier to uh, I think easier to focus on things that affect adversely affect or positively affect the people. Okay, so is our environment improving or degrading? Okay, this is the most obvious question with an obvious answer. The environment is degrading for most people. Okay, the surroundings in which people live are becoming worse and worse for most people. Okay, so why is this environment degrading? What's behind this environmental degradation? Okay, what are the causes? So one one cause is the large population. Okay, so many people. India has a very large population, and that that population itself is a big pressure on the environment. To survive, people to survive and to meet their needs of life, people make use of the resources around them. Sometimes in a sustainable way, sometimes in a not so sustainable way. So one potential cause of this problem is the size of the population itself. Okay, imagine a place with relatively small population, and imagine another okay, hypothetical or real place with a large population. Okay, and how is the environment going to be? How how is the environment okay likely to be in the first place with a small population? Because the population is less, there is likely to be less resource use. Okay, the resources around us. Okay, the forests and all things of nature. Okay, there's likely to be less intensive use of those resources. Okay, at least in comparison with this the second place where there's a large population. Large population just to survive will need a lot more resources. Okay, and that will lead to a lot more exploitation of the natural resources, and which can potentially lead to the degradation of the environment. Okay, so one cause of the problem is the large population itself. Okay, second, people are not really. It's not like people are not really living on their own, isn't it? There's a there's a government now. Okay, that government has to take care of this all things public. Okay, individual concerns are one thing, but there are public concerns. Okay, so environment is a public matter. Okay, so the government of the day. Okay, the elected government, the state. Okay, has to take care of this and environment. Take care of the environment as a public resource. Okay, but do we see enough action on this question? Do governments prioritize environment? Mostly no. It's because it's probably because environment is in a you know mm, antagonistic sorry, oppositional relationship with development, this idea of development. Okay, so if societies and if people have to develop, okay, by develop by development it might mean infrastructural development or social or economic or any of these. Okay, so the equation is right now is that if you want development, if we need to develop, some amount of degradation of environment is inevitable. Okay, you can't absolutely, I mean, you can't keep environment in a pristine way and still develop. Okay, that seems to be the equation right now. So that's another cause, which is that the environment has become uh, so environment is paying the cost of development. Since development is a priority for all governments, for all sections of people, environment has become the second or third or sometimes last priority. So that's another reason. Um, let's see what the sections of the chapter are. First, it talks about role of media in covering environmental issues. So, what role do our news media play in covering or in discussing these environmental issues? Okay. When we discussed about education, we saw that education is cover. When we talked about media coverage of education, we saw that they are educational issues related to education are in news only in extreme cases, only when things become really bad. Only then educational issues enter the news. Okay, so we can say the same thing about environment. Only when things get really bad, they become newsworthy. If we'll see examples of that. Next topic is we're going to discuss in more detail So the next topic after the role of media in covering environmental issues is the next topic is government and non-governmental organizations and environmental campaigns. Okay, there are three movements: Chipko movement, Apiko movement, and Narmada Bachao Andolan that are discussed in the chapter. Then we have a section on environmental policy initiatives, and finally we have global warming. So let's see what the book says. So, what is the role of media in covering environmental issues? Media is an important factor, it says. Underlying the knowledge of environmental problems. Okay, people know about environmental problems only because of the media, or mainly because of the media. Okay. It says media is first paragraph seems to imply media plays an instrumental role. Media is used as an instrument to create awareness, okay, to raise environmental awareness, a green ethic it calls. Okay, it says television, print news, broadcast, radio broadcast, and the internet are enlisted to help promote a green ethic, okay, the environmental ethic, and raise awareness of environmental issues. That is because mass media are accessible to large proportions. People access media all the time and they spend a lot of time on media. And so when environmental issues are in the media, published in the media, they're likely to get attention. Okay. So that is the first point. Second point is the mm, okay, networking. Today, various types of mass media enable people all over the world to interact and learn from each other at a pace not seen before. Okay, so these media also provide an opportunity to network and learn from each other. Communication with the help of mass media brings people together, thus okay, enabling some kind of a networking and working together. Third point, it says in today's era, science and knowledge are continuously questioned in a communication environment which generates multiple social imaginaries and material consequences. Very theoretical concepts. Um, Studying the mediation of environmental issues necessitates more than an examination of questions of content and representation. Okay. It kind of questions the first point. It says media is not just raising environmental issues. Okay. This earlier media was seen as a vehicle to disseminate information or science. It was used only as a channel to convey messages, mostly positivist messages about science and so on. Now, media has become part of the process of questioning and counter imaginaries and material consequences. Okay? So, digital platforms have played a controversial role in creating some environmental narratives. Okay? And these narratives range from journalistic coverage and framing to industry lobby naysaying. Okay? Climate change denial and conservative progressive discourses. Mm. This section discusses very broadly and very, very theoretically. Okay, the role of media in covering environmental issues. It's not really looking at the media coverage in India. So governmental and non-governmental organizations and environmental campaigns. So it talks about changing role of governments. It says government is now the vision or goal setter. Governments need to provide vision and strategy to incorporate a sustainability in public policy and using concepts such as natural capitalism, eco-economy, and green economy. mm, Call for transformation in systems dealing with energy, waste, water, and governance. Facilitated. Governments need to create open, competitive, and rightly framed markets. I think this is looking for solutions within capitalism. The role of non-governmental organizations in environment. Let's see what they are. Okay, Greenpeace. We're talking about activities of Greenpeace in terms of stop climate change, protect ancient forests, save oceans, stop whaling, say no to genetic engineering, stop the nuclear threat, eliminate toxic chemicals, encourage sustainable trade. All of which sounds fairly reasonable. Let's see what they are. So, stop climate change is about the extensive use of oil, gas, fuel, and other energy resources leads to changes in climate, which including one of the results of which is global warming. In order to stop climate change, Greenpeace is campaigning on various fronts. Next, protecting ancient forests. Okay, these ancient forests are of higher value compared to the social forestry. You know, forest plantations done by forest departments or corporates. So this is about protecting ancient forests. Next, save the oceans. Oh, what there are four major threats to world oceans: overfishing, pirate fishing, whaling, and intensive shrimp aquaculture. Overfishing, okay, unsustainable overfishing, pirate fishing, okay, whaling, okay, hunting whales, and intensive shrimp aquaculture. All of these are concerns of people, not really of whales of whales or of the ocean life. Okay, we'll see what the Chipko movement is. Chipko movement started in 1973 in Uttarakhand. At the time, it was part of Uttar Pradesh, and it lies at the foothills of Himalayas. Uh, in this, there's a Gandhian activist called Sundarlal Bahuguna who gave a call for people to hug the trees to prevent them from being cut. So that is why it's known as Chipko. Chipko in Hindi means just hold or hug. So people would go and hug the trees when to prevent them from being cut. Okay, so that saved that forest, and this led to Chipko movement becoming one of the successes of people's action on environment or to protect environment. Uh, so it says Chipko Andolan or Chipko movement is a movement that practiced the methods of Satyagraha, where both female and male activists from Uttarakhand played vital roles, and they mention some names: Gauri Devi, Suraksha Devi, Sude, Sudesha Devi, Vasni Devi, Chandi Prasad Bhatt, Virushka Devi, and so on. Okay, it was a counter to rapid deforestation. It exposed vested interests and increased social awareness and the need to save trees, increased ecological awareness and demonstrated the viability of people power. Next example is Apiko movement, the famous Chipko Andolan. Uttarakhand inspired people of Uttara Kannada district in Karnataka to launch a similar movement to save their own forests. So in 1983, people of Salkani hugged the trees in Kalase forest. So Pandurang Hegde is the leader of this movement. He was inspired by Sundarlal Bahuguna, and Apiko movement also tried to save Western Ghats by spreading the movement all over South India. Its objectives are to save the remaining tropical forests in the Western Ghats, uh, and to restore the greenery to denuded areas, and to propagate the idea of rational utilization in order to reduce pressure on forest resources, to save, to grow, and to use rationally. Okay? Ubsu, Belesi, and Balasu. These are the Kannada terms for the same ideas. Okay, so these together are the slogan of this Apiko movement: to save, to grow, and to use rationally. Let's look at what the objectives are once more. So the first objective is to save the remaining tropical forests in the Western Ghats. Okay. Second, to restore greenery to denuded areas, to the deforested areas. Okay. And third, to propagate the idea of rational utilization in order to reduce the pressure on forest resources, all of which are very good. So that is the Apiko movement. Third, we'll come to Narmada Bachao Andolan. Mm. Mm. This is a social movement led by tribal tribals, farmers, environmentalists, and human rights activists against construction of a number of large dams on the Narmada River. Narmada flows through the states of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra. So Sardar Sarovar Dam is one of the biggest dams on the Narmada River and one of the focal points of the Save Narmada movement. See, there's very little information about this project in the book. It's just two paragraphs. So this Narmada Bachao Andolan, uh, its basic idea was that large dams are destructive of environment. Okay, and this benefits are negligible. Okay, and whatever the objectives of building a large dam, those objectives can be met without building such a large dam. Okay, there are other alternative ways to achieve, for example, to provide access to irrigation and other objectives. Okay, but for some reason, uh, from around the time of independence, large dams were India's were part of India's planning. Okay? and they're part of India's development approach. So this Narmada Bachao Andolan campaign questioned the rationality, the need for large dams, and it highlighted the concerns of all the affected sections like tribals and all the everyone. Okay, but ultimately the dam came to be built. So this is a compared to the other two, this kind of took on the establishment. Uh, it was not just about raising awareness. It tried to stop a big dam. That requires a lot of effort and also you know needs to needed it change in public opinion and so on. Next we'll come to environmental policy initiatives. Environmental policy is a policy of the government. What are the policies or what is the policy approach of the government towards environment? That is that is a concern here. Environmental policy, government started framing policies towards environment only in the 1970s. Until then, environment was not really a concern. So, so the first form of public policy and environment was direct regulation. That means having rules. These approaches also termed as command and control approaches because the taxes are set by the regulatory agencies of government and the companies needed to comply and pay these taxes. Though taxes are controversial, governments have faced pushback. Regulation is still an effective direct mechanism to ensure. It's not really talking about India's environmental regulation, India's environmental policy. Hmm. So India right now has this Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, MOEFCC. Okay. This ministry used to be known as simply Ministry of Environment, but recently its name has been changed to MOEFCC, Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change. Okay. So what are the policies of this ministry? Like, mm, it its job is mainly to, it seems to be mainly to regulate, you know, um, exploitation of forest resources, natural resources. Uh, it kind of gives permission to coal mining companies or other companies to, you know, mine forests, etc., and might sometimes impose conditions like these corporates which mine the forest, which cut the which do mining in the forest, need to plant an alternative forest somewhere else, hmm, where there is no forest. Okay, where there is degraded forest or denuded lands in such areas, these corporates which are permitted to mine have to plant kind of alternative forests. So that is the kind of action. Its main job is to regulate or to decide when to give whether to permit corporates to exploit natural resources. That's what. India's Ministry of Environment is mainly doing. It faced a lot of criticism for not prioritizing environmental issues, for always prioritizing the corporate interests. Okay, in the last 5 to 10 years, the way this environment ministry has acted has faced a lot of criticism, has led to a lot of criticism. Next is global warming. This is the planet level warming. Okay, this is about warming of the Earth's surface, hmm, because of increasing concentrations of carbon in the atmosphere. Okay, so this increasing concentrations of if there's more and more carbon in the atmosphere, it kind of acts as a trap. It kind of traps the heat. Okay, the heat doesn't reflect and go away. Instead, it gets trapped within the environment, I mean, around the Earth. So that leads to uh, heating up of the planet overall. Okay, not in particular areas, but the planet as a whole. So that can jeopardize survival of humanity. I mean, people, not just humanity, but the life itself may not survive on Earth if that continues. Okay, so that is why global warming has become a concern, and all countries of the world have come together to sign something called Paris Accord, Paris Agreement, in which they pledged to take actions, okay, that would cut their carbon emissions to slow down the rise in global temperatures to 1.5 degrees centigrade by 2100, by the year 2100. Okay, so that is what global warming is for. Okay, so that brings us to the end of first chapter about environment. Mm, As is our practice, let's look at the model examination questions. First question in the first set. Explain the government and non-governmental organizations and environmental campaigns. Okay. I guess you can talk about the non-governmental environmental actions like Chipko movement, the Apiko movement, and the Narmada Bachao Andolan that the book discusses, uh, and governmental actions and campaigns if there are any. Next, write a note on global warming. Just discuss this. Okay, global warming is the rise in temperature on the planet itself, on Earth itself, not in one area or not in one season, but overall the long-term trend of rising rising average temperatures on the planet itself. Okay, what causes this? It is right now the understanding is that increasing concentrations of carbon in the atmosphere is what causes global warming. So how do we stop it? The Paris Agreement, which the whole world agreed to, is says that we'll try to take all possible actions that will limit the rise in temperature to 1.5 degrees centigrade only by 2100, by the year 2100. So the next set to question one. Discuss the role of media in covering environmental issues. Okay, you can talk about your own observations of what media do to in terms of you know, covering environment. I've shared my observations earlier in the class. If you want, you can use them. Explain environmental policy initiatives. You can go through some reporting. You can go through the policy announcements of the MOEFCC, recent policy announcements, policy changes, etc. You can get them on their website. Okay, MOEFCC, or you can also look at the coverage of these policies by uh, certain reporters who cover or who closely keep track of these environmental issues, environmental policy. Among them is a journalist called Nitin Sethi. Okay, right now he's working with the organization called Reporters Collective. He has he's been a he has been following environmental issues for a long time, mainly environmental policy rather than issues. Okay, so you can check out his coverage, his stories to see what's going on in the environmental policy sphere. Okay? So that's about it. Next topic is health reporting. Just give me a second. Now we come to health reporting or health journalism, reporting health. So when we discussed environment, we started off by discussing what environment is and contrasted it with ecology. And we saw how the two are different. Okay. Similarly, now into if we might start by talking about what health is. What do we mean by health? Does this book define what health means? Um, book directly goes into health reporting, sources and styles and so on. I think we need to get some good understanding of what health is before we go into reporting reporting health matters. What do we mean by health? Health is the physical and mental well-being of a person. It's not just lack of any health problem or health issue. When do we call someone a healthy person? When there is no medical issue? It's not just that. When someone is well, you know, it's someone's well-being. It's about someone's well-being. Uh, should have come better prepared. So, do newspapers cover health? I think it would be more up to say they cover um, health. They cover more health facilities like hospitals, lack of hospitals, poorly managed hospitals, not lack of availability of doctors, and so on. Okay, so media generally covers this health facilities rather than health issues. So there are some guidelines for journalists. First is give careful thought to any decision to identify a private individual. This is about covering health issues. First, this is already over. Okay, what are the major health issues in India? Section 3. There are different ways of talking about health issues in India. First, one is lifestyle diseases like diabetes, hypertension, heart complications, HIV, AIDS, cancer, flu, family planning, and polio. Public health professionals have um, India used to face a big burden of infectious diseases uh, early in the early decades of its independence. Okay, now these infectious diseases have receded somewhat. Infectious diseases are like TB, mm, chickenpox, smallpox, those things. Okay, those are somewhat we were able to control them somewhat, and now lifestyle diseases are the biggest burden. So this section talks about all of these issues, cancer, polio, and so on. Read that. Next is news writing techniques on public health related issues. Some ways to make your reports more engaging. Find an angle that readers can easily relate to. Okay, focus on people and their experiences and the context with the evidence. Okay, remember that people love good stories. If your story is long, rely on principles of narrative journalism. Find a main character and build a dramatic structure. Okay, this is about storytelling. How to tell a good story. Okay, next, use people's sharing motivations to your benefit. People share stories on social media to help others to look smart or to express their identity and to share their joy, anger, or awe. So you can use those motivations to your benefit by finding stories on social media. Okay. If you're writing about a particularly different medical issue, such as antibiotic resistance or obesity, or any other difficult problem, consider all possible solutions to the problem. Offering a spark of hope can make your reader feel more empowered. Okay. Attract your readers' attention on social media by using interesting headlines, an appealing image, or a catchy intro. Remove possible obstacles like slow loading photos or multimedia that require extra clicks. Okay. This is about what to do on the net. 5. Be yourself. If your media and topic allow, use humor and personal voice. This will help you connect with your reader as an individual, not as a distant representative of news organization. Okay. That means be a person. Now, ethics of reporting health issues in the media. There are some risks, okay? One of which is being misled into placing false hope into an unproven approach. So, pharma companies or hospitals may mislead. reporters into believing that a particular approach is a good one when uh, that and that's not the case. Next, scheduling unnecessary physician visits because of something seen or heard in the news is a waste of time for all involved. Reporters should be cautious while reporting medical legal cases. The facts should be ascertained from hospital authorities before writing such reports. Journalists should be ready to take up people's cause by narrating the plight of patients in hospital, but he or she should not adopt a partisan attitude while doing so. Journalists should also give due coverage to the version of the hospital authorities with regard to a particular situation. Okay. Next, health communication strategies. So there are some tips for effective health communication. It says use of research-based strategies to shape materials and products to select the channels that deliver them to the intended audience. Understanding of conventional wisdom, concepts, and language, and priorities for different cultures and settings. Considerations of health literacy, internet access, media exposure, and cultural competency of target populations. Finally, development of materials such as brochures, billboards, newspaper articles, television broadcasts, radio commercials, all of these. Strategies to improve health communication. To improve health communication, what do we do? Government agencies and technology corporations should collaborate. Health information should be written at people's level of comfort. Now, then set up training centers that equip health communication professionals and health professionals with good communication skills. Training centers, okay? Training in communication. Workplace guides. During a disease outbreak, employers have a responsibility for employee productivity and also for their health. Distribution of workplace guides to control the spread of communicable diseases is an important health communication strategy. Community skits. In a community setting, it's useful to organize short dramas or skits that portray the attitudes of local people towards their health. By understanding local attitudes, health workers can plan interventions targeting specific behavioral changes. Okay. So we've come to the end of the chapter. Let's see what the questions are. Explain health reporting. Hmm. I think a better question might be, what are the do's and don'ts in reporting on health issues? Okay. What are the things that journalists are supposed to do? What are the things that journalists should avoid doing? Okay. Make two separate lists of do's and don'ts. Second question, describe news writing techniques of public health related issues. News writing techniques. Okay. Describe the ethics of reporting health issues. Are there any ethical issues in reporting health issues in the media? Yes, uh, there are many. Depicting or portraying one unusual cases as representative of much wider some kind of a phenomenon, or um, writing about the suffering or you know, of individual in a way that kind of blames that individual. These can these and many other ethical issues are there with reporting in health. Next is discuss the health communication strategies. Health communication. Okay, the last section of the book talks about those things. So that's about it. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.